Welcome to Fox Soul's Black Report, your space for black news, views, and opinions. Today is Thursday, February 24th. I'm Seth Lemon.
I'm Romeo.
I'm Demi Lobo. And on today's report, as Russian President Vladimir Putin launches a full-scale attack on Ukraine overnight, President Biden and other world leaders ramp up their response. Meanwhile, the Department of Homeland Security issues a terrorism advisory for historically black colleges, universities, and black churches. Then the Pentagon is harnessing its expertise to create a device that predicts COVID-19 infections even days before any test.
Plus, there's no cap in Colin Kaepernick's efforts to help the black community. He has new action that's giving hope to families of loved ones killed by police. And Uncle Snoop's new deal may have hit a snag. He may not have his hands on several Death Row Records' biggest hits. We're going to talk about that because we have all of that and so much more. It is our voice and our truth. So let's get it.
We begin this hour with breaking news. President Biden joining other world leaders and hitting Russia with more severe sanctions today after the country launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine overnight. In a speech this afternoon, Biden announcing harsher sanctions, but acknowledging it may take some time for any of the measures to impact Putin's behavior. Biden called this a generational moment that could potentially upend global order. It's a conflict of this size we haven't seen since World War II. Explosions and sirens ring out, and smoke fills the sky as Russia attacks from the north, the south, and the east. Ukrainian residents urged to take cover as martial law is declared, with thousands fleeing Ukraine's capital, creating massive traffic gridlock. President Biden spoke with Ukraine's President Zelensky by phone, pledging support and assistance.
Putin is the aggressor. Putin chose this war, and now he and his country will bear the consequences.
The president authorizing new sanctions against Russia Thursday and limiting what can be exported to the country as Putin vows consequences that you have never faced in history for any country that interferes, promising to be ready for any outcome.
I just want to ask you to push your government to put the toughest possible sanctions against Putin now.
Now, Russia has taken Chernobyl. Of course, this is adding to the concerns, capturing the abandoned nuclear power plant that left a radioactive cloud above Europe after the world's worst meltdown back in 1986. You know, among these concerns, now we're also seeing President Obama speak out. He's putting out a statement just coming out today that condemns Russia's actions, and he calls it a violation of international law and basic human decency. And with him saying that Ukrainians are coming face to face with the brutal onslaught, he sees this as a threat to international order and security, and suggests that it doesn't matter which costs we might have to pay economically because, you know, we might feel a little pinch here in our own pockets. He says it's a price we should be willing to pay for freedom.
Absolutely. So there are people, Ukrainians right now, are fleeing to other places in Ukraine and also across the country as well, trying to, of course, protect themselves and protect their families. And back to Barack Obama's statement that he put out, this is very powerful because a lot of people are wondering what all presidents would have done if it were a different president right now, how Biden is handling it. Some people have said, I wonder what Donald Trump would have done. Many people wondering how Barack Obama would have handled it. And so his letter, a lot of people are reading it. And so one other thing that he said is that regardless of your party, so he's not even saying just Democrats here, not even speaking to just Democrats. He says, regardless of your party, you should support President Biden's effort in coordination with our closest allies. And so that's a very, very strong statement.
Definitely a strong statement. Don't be like Senator Lindsey Graham going out there saying, you know what, this would have never happened if Trump was in office. We don't need to hear that now because Trump can't help this situation. We see Ukrainians going to ATMs where they cannot get money out of the bank. We see right now where they're being urged real time where they shouldn't go out of their house or have their lights off because they need to be protected and be safe. Look, their hands is in the wrong hands right now because they're invading their space. At the end of the day, it will affect our country. We have to send prayers that way and have to just make sure we keep things up, man, for sure.
Yeah, at least the difference here, you know, that we're not talking about if President Trump was still in office.
Yeah.
President Biden has experience with this because this kind of began under President Obama. So no doubt he's been counseling him and checking in with him as well.
And General Lloyd Austin as well on the job. Also, the Biden administration is preparing Americans for the likelihood that economic sanctions on Russia will hit Americans in their pocketbooks. Oil prices surged today to $105 a barrel, the highest it's been in 8 years. Oregon today joined California as the second state to have $4 gas. The White House says the sanctions will probably send gas prices even higher. But administration officials say defending an ally is a worthy cause.
Vice President Kamala Harris is encouraging black state lawmakers to push for voting rights and other issues important to the black community. Harris met with members of the National Black Caucus of state legislators on Wednesday. The vice president is also urging members to continue to fight within their state legislators to promote fair voting laws.
We are also looking at an unprecedented assault on the freedom to vote in our country. In many of your states, we have seen legislation that has been passed or is attempted to be passed that will have as its, I believe, direct intention the goal of making it more difficult for people to vote.
The VP also provided an update for lawmakers on President Biden's next pick for the Supreme Court.
Ivanka Trump is negotiating with the January 6th committee about her testifying before the investigative panel. Ivanka served as a senior White House advisor during her father's administration, and now several outlets, including the New York Times and CNN, are confirming that she and the panel are voluntarily talking. Now, it's unclear whether her testimony will result in providing any substantive information. The committee wants to know what the former president was doing during the Capitol attack. Ivanka was reportedly in direct contact with her father that day, allegedly pleading with him to take some action.
Security fencing will go back up on Capitol Hill next week. It's in preparation for President Biden's State of the Union address. U.S. Capitol and D.C. Metro Police are worried about a potential trucker protest that could shut down roads around the Capitol and the city. Security officials say they will allow peaceful protests even while they work with the D.C. National Guard to prepare for President's speech.
The Supreme Court is weighing whether GOP-led states can defend the Trump-era immigration policy President Biden has ended. The High Court heard arguments Wednesday on the policy known as the Public Charge Rule. The 2019 provision imposed new restrictions on poor immigrants to the United States. The Trump era directed federal immigration officials to deny entry to the country for people they say are likely to rely on government assistance.
The Department of Homeland Security has issued a new terrorism advisory for HBCUs and religious institutions. That decision made after the hostage incident at a Texas synagogue earlier this year. Now, it comes as the FBI says 57 African-American churches, universities, and other black institutions have been targeted by bomb threats all around the nation this year. The FBI says it is aggressively investigating the spate of threats that started in early January when Howard University and 7 other HBCUs were forced to lock down their campuses. No explosive devices were found at any of the institutions, and the Bureau says it has not arrested anyone, despite identifying 6 tech-savvy juveniles who they say used crafty methods to hide the origin of their calls. Now, this is very reminiscent of the 1963 bombing in Birmingham, Alabama, that killed 4 little girls. But it was also strange that this popped up during Black History Month, the second wave of these on February 1st, what's supposed to be a memorable time for black contributions to the country.
You know, Black History Month is the one thing that bothers me the most, because what is it that makes you feel like our month that we're celebrating so many black leaders and activists and just black people around the world? What makes you want to rain on our parade? But also, you said that there were some juveniles. That also makes me wonder, I don't want these juveniles to be to just be treated as if they're juveniles. I want them to be treated as adults when it comes down to sentencing. Last point here is these are hate crimes. And so I want that where whoever is going to make sure that these men or whoever is responsible for this, that they go to jail. These are hate crimes, and it needs to be treated as such.
Yeah, we cannot take these situations lightly at all. I think the first incident happened January the 5th, right before the 1-year anniversary of the insurrection, and now it carried over into Black History Month. Again, we have to have all precautions off. We have to make sure we are alert. These are red flags in so many ways, and what I mean by that is the minute we just kind of like brush it off and say, okay, people are just playing jokes or doing dumb things, something drastically could happen, like you said back in the 60s. So it's so important that we do better at doing this, and we have to get to the bottom and see why it's happening.
Romeo, I'm really happy that you say that we need to keep our foot on the gas, because even though no bomb was found, we still need to stay diligent and make sure that we stay alert, like you said, because that's really important. Even though no bomb wasn't found, we still need to stay alert on this situation.
Definitely.
Attorney General Merrick Garland noted that the DOJ was actually created after the Civil War to protect black people's rights as they were facing these kinds of threats, not as lynchings back then, right after the Civil War, and as they continued through the 60s, these bomb threats. So the DOJ needs to stay on top of it, indeed.
Absolutely. The GOP, they are confident it will do so well in the November midterm elections. They are reportedly expanding its electoral map. Political analysts say Republicans are looking to win gubernatorial, Senate, and House seats in swing states. The GOP thinks governor's races in New Mexico, Connecticut, and Senate races in Colorado and Washington are up for grabs. But political experts say Republicans are winning races in blue-leaning states could be nothing more than a dream. Of course, Republicans are the GOP. They're feeling good. But again, talking about keeping our feet on the gas, there's so much history that could be made. There's so much black history that can be made in the midterms. There's so much female, women, black history that can be made in the midterms. So we need to stay diligent as well, making sure that nothing stops us from going out and voting, because the midterms, I will say, black people, we have a history of not taking the midterms serious, and we need to make sure we go out and vote for the midterms this year.
Yeah, we have to definitely do that. And here's how I look at this situation right now. You think of all the things that's going on with inflation, with our economy, right? With COVID hopefully coming to an incline where we don't have to worry about it as much. Now we have this war issue going on. All this favors the Republican Party for the midterm, because all they're going to do is say at the end of the day, the Biden administration is not getting anything done for the American people. Some of these things cannot be controlled by President Biden. It's just part of the course, but they're going to use that. So I think leading up to midterms, the GOPs and Republicans would definitely be favored because of these things.
Yeah, gubernatorial races have really emboldened the GOP as they look ahead to the midterm elections. And we'll see if they can maybe create some new battleground states, looking to get a red wave in other states like New Mexico or Connecticut, where they think they could have some success.
We definitely got to get out and vote. That's what we'll do.
Absolutely.
All right, there could be some good news for Donald Trump. Two Manhattan assistant DAs leading the probe into Trump's business practices are stepping down. Mark Pomerantz and Carrie Dunn abruptly resigned Wednesday. Now, there is no official word on why the attorneys are leaving the district attorney's office, but the New York Times says new DA Alvin Bragg has doubts about moving forward with the case against Trump. Under Bragg's predecessor, Cyrus Vance, the office was investigating whether the Trump organization was inflating the value of its assets. Prosecutors say Trump company officials were doing this in order to get better terms on bank loans. The resignations come weeks before the term of the grand jury is to expire. New York State Attorney General Letitia James is still working on a civil case against Trump for some of the same conduct as Manhattan case.
Alabama lawmakers are one step closer to passing a law that would bar transgender students from using the bathrooms that match their gender identity. The Alabama House of Representatives passed the bill this week, 74-24. The legislation mandates that K-12 students use multi-person restrooms that match the sex on their original birth certificate. Now, the bill is moving along to the Alabama Senate.
3 white supremacists could face as much as 15 years in prison for their part in a plot to attack power grids around the U.S. Christopher Cook, Jonathan Allen Frost, and Jackson Sowell all pled guilty Wednesday to conspiring to provide material support to terrorists. Justice Department lawyers say the men met in an online chat room in 2019 and shared plans to attack the power grids. Prosecutors say the men wanted to spark a race war. This reminds me to the January 6th insurrection, meeting on an online chat room, something that we always say, how can you regulate what happens online? How can you how can the government regulate what happens in online chat rooms? But we're seeing here that a lot of the planning that goes on for the insurrection, for what happened here, starts in these online chat rooms. And so I think that there also needs to be more done to making sure we keep a close look on what's happening online.
It's
Yeah.
weird because they wanted to take out these power grids by shooting at them. So using high-powered rifles and, like you said, hopefully causing a race war. That was their goal, to just disrupt and cost the government millions of dollars in order to incite some violence. I'm not sure how successful they thought they were going to be, but they had really been watching a lot of TV. Apparently, when one of the men was stopped in Ohio and prevented from carrying out this plan, he tried to swallow a suicide pill, like 007 type pill, and he survived. So all of these ideas, it's straight out of a movie almost.
Yeah, it really is. You think about, like you said, when you're online, when they're chatting, things can happen. People can be easily persuaded. A lot of things are happening in this country that people are just not happy with. Change has to happen for us to grow, and we know that. And people love things the way they were and the way they still are in that case. But I'm glad they got these men, and at the end of the day, we got to find out what was the reason behind it, and how would shooting out a power grid start a race war? I don't know how all that really falls into place.
You know,
a little
and two,
far-fetched.
one thing you say out of a movie, Romeo, you always talk too about video games and how much an influence, like you said, it sounds like something out of a video game or a movie. Like, where did you even get these ideas from?
And then we've been talking about the influence on children. Apparently, the men that weren't caught in Ohio went on to Texas and tried to recruit some juveniles to join in on their plot. So bad influences again.
Unbelievable. An African-American man who was arrested for a crime he didn't commit when he was just 15 reached a settlement with the Kansas City Police Department. Tyree Bell and the city reached a $900,000 deal. The suit stems from the 2016 arrest after police thought Bell looked like another teen who ran from them early that day. Cops say that teen threw a gun away as he ran. Police video shows Bell was taller and had a different hairstyle than the original suspect. Bell spent 3 weeks in jail. Part of the agreement requires the police department to apologize to Bell.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott may pardon some Austin cops who allegedly abused people during the George Floyd protests back in 2020. The idea of pardons came after a Travis County DA charged 19 officers for attacking about a dozen protesters. Each of those officers faces 2 counts of aggravated assault by a public servant. All of the cops are currently out on bond. 14 of them were released on bonds that were just for a nominal $1 amount. But Abbott says the accused officers were protecting people from the protesters. Not a surprise to see this coming from Texas Governor Greg Abbott, but it's just always a little sad to see the rush and effort to protect who these political officials are in line with.
The racism at this point, it's not subtle. It's very in our face. It's very blatant. It's very disrespectful, very disturbing. Not to mention, it was a struggle. We didn't get the pardon for George Floyd. This same person wouldn't give George Floyd a pardon, a person who is no longer with us, who died as a result of what happened to him. But you give a large amount of men who are still able to walk around the earth, still able to get a new job, you are okay with giving them a pardon, and they were disruptive to the American people. Very strange to me.
It's so unbelievable, because I'm going to tell you this. Look, in the black community and people of color, when something happens to them, sometimes it takes a while before we get the videotape. Sometimes they protect the police, and we have to wait for the trial. But in this case, he wants to just pardon them. He wants to just pardon them. Like that makes no sense to me. And it just shows you, like you said, Demi, it just shows that the racism that there still exists within our countries at a very high level.
You know, and even though it's a pardon, that doesn't take away the responsibility of what you did. I hope that people know that even though you get a pardon, that doesn't mean that takes away what you did or the people that you hurt. At your core, you still have to wake up every day and realize the pain that you caused a lot of people.
And it's a page out of Trump's playbook. To use pardons as a political tool is just a new, far-fetched idea. It's a power that for years we've thought was reserved for the most extreme circumstances, and that this was like one of those ultimate powers that an elected official holds. But President Trump using pardons as, gifts and offering them to get votes now, it's really changed the entire landscape.
That is such a great point, Seth.